All right, folks, brace yourselves because as we speak, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt is wrapping up what is almost certainly the most disastrous press conference of her career, in which, among other things, she says that Donald Trump's infamous MRI was, quote, preventative, which is really ominous. Preventative of what? What's going on with Donald Trump's brain? Moreover, she confirmed the recent bombshell reporting that the U.S. military did indeed do a second strike, a double tap, a murder, a war crime against shipwrecked Venezuelan civilians, except she's desperately trying to say that Trump and Hegseth had nothing to do with it and it was actually okay. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, folks, let's jump right on in. These two first clips I'm going to show you are about the MRI and the war crime, and then we're going to look at a bunch of others which touch on this as well. But here's the first bombshell.
Danny,
follow up on the MRI because President Trump yesterday said that he would release the results of his MRI. Is that happening right now?
it is happening right now. As part of, and this is a summary from the president's physician, and we will release it right now. I think my team has it teed up for all of you. I'll read it for you, and then you'll get it physically as well. As part of President Trump's comprehensive executive physical, advanced imaging was performed because men in his age group benefit from a thorough evaluation of cardiovascular and abdominal health. The purpose of this imaging is preventative, to identify any issues early, confirm overall health, and ensure the president maintains long-term vitality and function. President Trump's cardiovascular imaging was perfectly normal. No evidence of arterial narrowing impairing blood flow or abnormalities in the heart or major vessels. The heart chambers are normal in size, the vessel walls appear smooth and healthy, and there are no signs of inflammation or clotting.
So this is what she's reading. Of course, again, President Biden's physician said similar things about him and Karoline Leavitt and Donald Trump, nor did most of the American people believe it, so really shouldn't believe this. But note the word preventative. Preventative in nature. What are you worried about with respect to Donald Trump's brain and age? Pretty ominous and a tacit concession there, especially when you combine it with all the other evidence of his decline. So that's on Trump's MRI. That'll come up again later. Then the other bombshell, in which Leavitt confirms that the reported second strike on the shipwrecked Venezuelan civilians actually occurred. It's just that it had nothing to do with Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, apparently.
Thank you. Gabe.
Thank you, Caroline. Excuse me. Regarding Venezuela, the president said yesterday that Secretary Hegseth had denied that second strike, the reported second strike on an alleged drug vote on September 2nd, the secretary said to the president that didn't happen. But to clarify, I just wanted you to clear this up. In his social media post, Secretary Hegseth didn't go into details about that strike. He just said U.S. operations in the area were lawful, and he said that the story and media reports were fabricated. So to be clear, does the administration deny that second strike happened, or did it happen and the administration denies that Secretary Hegseth gave the order?
The latter is true, Gabe, and I have a statement to read for you here.
The latter is true. The latter is true. So Trump said that Hegseth denied the second strike occurred. He didn't. So Trump was lying about what Hegseth did or did not say, or Trump's an idiot, but either way, bad for Trump and Hegseth. Here you have Leavitt saying, no, there was a second strike. It just wasn't Hegseth who gave the order. We're going to continue this clip, and again, so many others where that came from, but just really to put that fine point on it. She confirms that reported second strike, a war crime, a murder, actually occurred.
President Trump and Secretary Hegseth have made it clear that presidentially designated narco-terrorist groups are subject to lethal targeting in accordance with the laws of war. With respect to the strikes in question on September 2nd, Secretary Hegseth authorized Admiral Bradley to conduct these kinetic strikes. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat to the United States of America was eliminated. And I would just add one more point to remind the American public why these lethal strikes are taking place. Because this administration has designated these narco-terrorists as foreign terrorist organizations.
Yeah, and again, actual legal experts who are much smarter and infinitely more experienced than Karoline Leavitt are pointing out that what Trump is doing and what she just confirmed happened was a war crime and murder. Donald Trump can say, well, they're narco-terrorists. Well, listen, buddy, you're not a fucking god. You have to comport yourself within the law. Trump's not doing that. So again, it comes up later. but we're actually going to skip to the end in the third clip I'm going to show you. This is her at the end talking about, going back to Trump's MRI, about how upset she is. How dare people say that Donald Trump isn't fit? She says he is the most successful president in American history, which is just absolute bullshit, before running out of the room.
And to constantly have to defend against these fake news and these attacks. And I will point out one fake news story over the weekend before I let you all go, from the New York Times, that took about 1/3 of the president's daily calendar and his daily schedule and said that he's doing less than he did in his first term, or he might not be fit for the job. That is unequivocally false, and it's deeply unfortunate that this story was written by the same outlet and the same reporter who wrote this: Biden is doing 100% fine after tripping while boarding Air Force One. Oh, same outlet, same reporter who wrote that President Trump is not fit for the job. Are you kidding me? You all see him almost every single day. He is the most accessible president in history. He is taking meetings around the clock. Another one. Biden declared, quote, healthy and vigorous after his first presidential physical. I don't see headlines like that too often about this president. Again, same reporter, same outlet who wrote falsely over the weekend that President Trump is not fit for the job. I can assure you he absolutely is. You all see that with your own eyes on a daily basis, and the president's physician has now given you all 3 detailed reports on the state of the president's health. So with that, I will leave you all, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Except they also gave detailed reports about President Biden. You didn't accept it. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. We're going to effortlessly turn this standard on you because we have every right to do so, and there's plenty of reason to call into question Trump's physical and mental health. If you don't like it, you shouldn't have played this game with Biden. We're going to have one standard for all politicians, Karoline. I'm sorry that you always lose the debate, but it's funny. Now, circling back, let's go through chronological order. Leavitt tackling questions about Trump's MRI and Trump's war crimes, because again, they're throwing this Admiral Bradley under the bus. P. Hegseth and Donald Trump had nothing to do with it. It was Admiral Bradley.
So that's why you've seen a drastic difference in this administration's policy with respect to the last, and it's one of the many reasons the American public reelected this president and support this Secretary of War in conducting these strikes.
So to be clear, to clarify, Admiral Bradley was the one who gave that order for a second strike.
And he was well within his authority to do so.
And a separate question.
So they're throwing Bradley under the bus, right? Trump threw Hegseth under the bus. We did a video about that. Now they're teaming up together to throw Bradley under the bus to try to save Hegseth's ass. But you can bet that Trump will drop him like a hot potato the moment it becomes so politically inconvenient that Trump doesn't want the hassle of it anymore. Again, loyalty only works one way with Trump, and it's towards him. Let's continue.
Question. The president several days ago said it was his intention to pardon the former president of Honduras, who was a convicted drug trafficker. And yesterday on Air Force One, the president said that if someone sells drugs in that country, that doesn't mean you arrest the president and put him in jail for the rest of his life. How is that different than what the administration is accusing Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro of?
You're cherry-picking the president's statement a little bit yesterday. As he also said yesterday, the people of Honduras have highlighted to him how the former president Hernandez was set up. This was a clear Biden over prosecution. He was the president of this country. He was in the opposition party. He was opposed to the values of the previous administration, and they charged him because he was president of Honduras. There were some other egregious facts that came out during this trial, and I would encourage you to report on them. His court-appointed lawyer was only given 3 weeks to prepare for trial. He shared that his conviction was lawfare by the leftist party, who, quote, struck a deal with the Biden-Harris administration.
There's some egregious facts. He had 3 weeks, and also he says it's lawfare. Those aren't facts that are relevant, lady. Number one. Number two, we read the reporting on this. The evidence against the former president of Honduras is brutal. And watching Karoline Leavitt here scramble to come up with something, well, you know, the Biden administration didn't like them. Who cares? You need to actually provide compelling evidence if you want to make the case that this was Biden persecution. You have failed to do so. You will always fail to do so. Again, you'll always lose that debate. Just admit that Trump sees a kindred spirit in a corrupt ex-head of state.
Jackie.
Thank you, Caroline. Following up on Gabe's question, you said that the follow-up strike was lawful. What law is it that allows no survivors?
The strike conducted on September 2nd was conducted in self-defense to protect Americans in vital United States interests. The strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
And then on this pardon for the Honduran president.
So total non-answer whatsoever. Oh, okay. What law permits this? It was in accordance with the law. What law, you idiot? Why are you, what are you, what law? I'll say it slower. What law? I understand you're claiming it's in accordance with the law. What law, Karoline? Do you need me to write it down? Are you that dumb? She's not that dumb. She's just a liar who's forced to defend somebody who's not only a liar, but also much dumber than she is. She's smarter than Trump. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you put yourself in a position to support Donald Trump. It's like being Karoline Leavitt not being an idiot is like being the world's smartest flat earther, right? It doesn't matter how smart or how good at her job she is. And I think she is good at her job and she uses her powers for evil. She is forced to defend the indefensible, which is why she always comes off looking like she's lost the engagement, which she does.
Conflict.
And then on this pardon for the Honduran president, does it at all undercut the administration's messaging while you have these congressional Republicans defending the strikes on the narco-terrorists and then a pardon for a convicted drug trafficker? Does that make it more difficult for your members to defend your administration's policy?
I don't think so, Jackie. I think that President Trump has been quite clear in his defense of the United States homeland to stop these illegal narcotics from coming to our borders, whether that's by land or by sea. And he's also made it quite clear that he wants to correct the wrongs of the weaponized Justice Department under the previous administration. And Ouija, I'll call on you.
So that's Jackie Heinrich of Fox News who's asking those important questions. And again, really terrible answers from Karoline Leavitt here, offering no evidence that the Biden Justice Department was weaponized against the former president of Honduras. And again, it is actually a good point. Well, if you're murdering civilians in the name of combating drug trafficking, why the fuck would you pardon a convicted drug trafficker with all the evidence against him? Again, it's just pure hypocrisy. There's no principle within the Trump administration. It's a morally inferior administration to certainly any Democratic administration which preceded it and likely any to follow. But they don't care because right now they have power. About power to them, not principle.
Today.
I was going to
great minds.
Yours. Thank you, Karoline. Sure. So just to be clear, to clarify on Jackie and Gabe, did Admiral Bradley order that second strike because there were still survivors after the initial strike?
Again, as I read for you, Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law. He directed the engagement to ensure the boat was destroyed and the threat of narco-terrorists to the United States was completely eliminated.
So was the initial order from Secretary Hegseth, everyone be killed, and did that come from President Trump?
I saw that quoted in a Washington Post story. I would reject that the Secretary of War ever said that. However, the president has made it quite clear that if narco-terrorists, again, are trafficking illegal drugs towards the United States, he has the authority to kill them. And that's what this.
So again, listen, I reject that he did that. It's just that the president said, hey, you can kill whoever you want, whenever you want, with it, as long as we can call them narco drug traffickers, right? It doesn't matter if they're defenseless. It doesn't matter if they didn't attack first. It doesn't matter if they're shipwrecked, barely clinging to life. You do whatever you got to do, big boy. Again, actively making this so much worse. And Democrats should be relentless about talking about this.
Go ahead. Sure.
And then in the interest of transparency, does the White House support releasing the Department of Defense's video of those September 2nd strikes on those military boats? And also, separate topic on presidential pardon power. Why did the president commute the sentence of David Gentile recently? He was a private equity executive. He served 12 days out of a 7-year sentence. Prosecutors said he defrauded $1.6 billion with thousands of victims, including veterans, farmers, teachers. Why was he pardoned?
To your first question, that's definitely not a decision for me to make. I would defer you to the Department of War. It's also probably a decision for the president himself to make. As for your second question with respect to that pardon, he issued a commutation for Mr. Gentile, who's the former CEO and co-founder of GBP Capital Holdings. Unlike similar companies, GBP paid regular annualized distributions to its investors. In 2015, GBP disclosed to investors investors the possibility of using investor capital to pay some of these distributions rather than funding them from current operations. Even though this was disclosed to investors, the Biden Department of Justice claimed it was a Ponzi scheme. This claim was profoundly undercut by the fact that GBP had explicitly told investors what would happen. At trial, the government was unable to tie any supposedly fraudulent representations to Mr. Gentile. In short, again, this is another example that has been brought to the president's attention.
Except, of course, it resulted in conviction. So again, Karoline Leavitt's just lying her ass off here, but that's what she does.
Attention of a weaponization of justice from the previous administration, and therefore he signed this commutation.
Statements, though, say that these people were defrauded.
I just read you a very detailed summary of why the commutation was made.
Ooh. Again, she can't do it. Well, what about the people whom the courts proved were defrauded? Screw them and screw you. How dare you? How dare you ask me questions about that? Those are inconvenient. Again, no satisfying answer whatsoever, but this is the position Trump puts her in. Here's another clip.
With the red tie.
Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, Andrew, go ahead, and then you.
In wake of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor
Go ahead
Greene's
after.
early resignation, reports last week indicated that other House Republicans might consider doing the same. Does the president have any concerns in light of those reports about other House Republicans potentially leaving early, as well as the other announced retirements that we saw in the last couple of days?
Look, I think the president maintains very good relationships with the vast majority, maybe with the exception of one or two. I think many in this room know who I'm referring to. Very good relationships with members of Capitol Hill within the Republican Party. And the president clearly is the unequivocal leader of the Republican Party. I think it was a recent CNN poll that actually showed that more than 90% of Republicans continue to support President Trump as the leader. So he maintains very good relations, as does his entire team here at the White House. And of course, we have a very slim margin in the House, and the president wants that to continue.
Which is why he's panicking, as we discussed in a separate video. He is panicking about tomorrow's special election in Tennessee. So let's see here. A couple more clips. Again, this war crime and murder authorized by the Trump administration keeps coming up, and Leavitt really struggles to deal with it.
Andrew, go ahead.
For you,
Sure.
First, on the Venezuela strike, you said that second strike was in full accordance with the law of armed conflict, but the Navy's own manual of law of war says that specifically firing on survivors from a wrecked vessel is an example of a war crime that's forbidden under U.S. law and the law of armed conflict. So was that second strike in following law of armed conflict and then second on immigration?
Again, Andrew, I would reiterate to you the strike was conducted in international waters and in accordance with the law of armed conflict. And since somebody asked about Congress, and it's sort of related to Venezuela, I also want to add that Secretary Hegseth spoke with members of Congress who may have expressed some concerns over the weekend. And there have also been 13 bipartisan briefings to Congress on the Venezuelan strikes. There have been a number of document reviews for members of Congress to review the classified DOJ Office of Legal Counsel opinion and other related documents. 29 senators and 92 representatives have reviewed those documents, which is about 2/3 of those are Democrat members, and they have been made available to all 100 senators, all 435 members of the House, and to general counsels of the relevant committees on a bipartisan basis for their review.
Except, as we have discussed, both bipartisan members of Congress, not just Democrats, but also Republicans, have complained about the utter lack of transparency coming from this administration, as well as the fact that their claims about the lawfulness of the basis of, this drug war, for example, they have not been satisfied. You just say that it's within your right to do so, but you actually don't substantiate the claims. We need more than just your insistence that what you're doing is lawful, and this is where the Trump administration repeatedly fails. One last clip.
So much of the concern from Democrats and Republicans is focused on the survivors. Why won't the administration either confirm deny or reveal whether or not there were survivors after that initial first strike? And what imminent threat would two survivors pose who were clinging presumably to the wreckage of that boat?
Again, as I said, I think you guys are sort of not listening fully to the statement I've provided. Admiral Bradley worked well within his authority and the law, directing the engagement to ensure the boat was totally destroyed and the threat to the narco-terrorists, to the United States, was eliminated. And for any further questions about his thinking, I would defer you to the department.
It's like, no, I don't think you're listening. She asked you why you all don't just confirm that there were two survivors between the first and second strikes. Your answer was non-responsive there. It had nothing to do with it. Again, are you stupid? Is this why you always lose the debate, Karoline Leavitt? No, again, it's not that she's stupid. It's that she's dishonest and she's supporting a stupid and dishonest administration. And this is what this has driven her to. Again, worst press conference of Leavitt's career so far. She's got 3 more years to, compound this record. But again, confirming that Donald Trump's MRI was preventative, which is quite ominous, ranting about people saying things like, reporting negatively about his health, and then also confirming that there was a second strike, which was reported, effectively confirming the reporting that the Trump administration committed a war crime and a murder of at least 2 Venezuelan non-combatants who are clinging to wreckage. And now she's desperate to try to distance Trump and Hegseth from that order. So all I can say to Admiral Bradley, good luck, buddy. You need to lawyer up. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.